Good morning and welcome to It's No Secret. Thanks for joining us today. As I told you all, in the studio is somebody very special to me, actually, a young woman that I have gotten to know over the last few years who I actually reached out to you a lot here and there over the years because I knew who you were. I know people in your family, and you were just somebody that when I was going through some of my stuff or having anxiety about things, I would send you little messages in Messenger once in a while, and you also were so amazing about it. And then over the last, I don't know, probably 6 months, maybe even a year, you certainly have become a real part of my everyday life. And I'm so grateful to have you. And I am honored to introduce to all of you Katie Jones. So good morning, and thank you so much for joining me.
Good morning. I am thrilled to be here. Super grateful.
And you've had a busy day already.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of start in the front and move backwards, which is,
Sure.
I mean, it's a little odd, but I want to let people know that right now you are at the Turning Point Center, but you wear many hats there.
Yeah.
And that is where your journey has led you. Thank God for that. And so you're a recovery coach. What else do you do?
I am. So I'm a recovery coach. I work up in the emergency department as part of my job. I do one-on-one coaching with folks, and I also work in treatment court. And the emergency department stuff as well as treatment court are both super meaningful. I went to the emergency department several times in the middle of my addiction. And one of those times, a recovery coach from the Turning Point came and chatted with me. And that experience was by far a better experience than the times that I went prior to that. I feel like they kind of didn't know what to do with me back in those days. And to speak with someone who wasn't judging me and just, was there to let me know I wasn't alone was huge. And the treatment court stuff, I went through treatment court, and I know what a hard process it is. And to be able to give the folks who are currently in it some hope, and also letting them know that they're not alone is just, it fuels me.
And really, to be able to see you is a big deal to a lot of people because that truly is hope. That is, wait a minute, I can really turn this around, and this is what I could possibly do with my life. I think that one of the big myths of it all is that everybody that suffers from some sort of addiction is an evil person. And deep down, that is so not the case. And many, the majority want nothing more than to not live that life anymore. And so to see the possibilities and to see that can really happen is a big deal.
Yeah, it is. I know on the outside, we look at these folks who are struggling, and it's easy to judge them by the actions, the behaviors. They're committing crimes, they're out on the streets, and it's easy to look down on that. But the biggest thing that I think I want people to know is that, like you said, there are human beings underneath that. And I can guarantee you that these people don't want to be where they're at. It's just hard when you're in the middle of it to firstly ask for help, but to know where to go to get that help.
And especially if you think that the people around you are looking down at you,
Absolutely.
it's hard to, then you're
Yep.
admitting maybe you're the person that they think you are, and you're
Yes.
saying, yes, I'm that person, but help me anyways. And that becomes super tough. And that's tough no matter what you're doing. I don't care if you're going to
Absolutely.
Weight Watchers or what it is in life. If there's something that, makes you feel as though you are somehow insignificant to someone,
Yes.
admitting to somebody that maybe you do have a little bit of what they're saying in you,
Yeah.
but that you need them.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
tough.
It is. I think that the shame of it all really holds people back. It held me back. I didn't want to come out and admit that I had a problem. I was able to, at some point, sort of hide it, and I did my best all the time to hide it. But I got to a point where I was out on the streets, and everyone saw me. Everyone knew what I was up to.
Because it's no secret.
Yeah,
Even though you
it's
all
not.
think it is. It's really not.
For
We
sure.
know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And trying to hide that is exhausting. And again, the shame, just like, it's an endless cycle.
So now we'll go back to the beginning a little bit. So
Yeah.
how did you get here? Like you were in high school. Was there things that happened in life that brought you here? Depression, circumstances, injuries, or
Totally.
or anything different. I mean, we know, or I know, maybe not a lot know, that you have an amazing family. And another
Yeah.
myth that you must come from this horrible
Yeah.
place in order
Yeah.
for that to happen. And we know that that's not true.
Yep.
But how did things start for you?
So yeah, I had an amazing childhood. I do. I have the best family. They're so supportive, and I had all the opportunities, and I didn't have trauma in my childhood. My parents were and are wonderful. My brother and I had this sort of idyllic childhood. And I think that in high school, I had some sort of undiagnosed mental health stuff going on. And towards the end of my high school years, I partied here and there, like everyone was doing. And I started doing pills here and there, like Vicodin and Percocet with my friends, like just as sort of a social thing. And so I was doing that here and there. I was leaving school to go smoke pot. And I'm not sure how I got away with that because my dad owns a business right across from Spalding. But
Well, because you learned to be sneaky.
absolutely, yes. And that was, the sneakiness was a big thing for me in those days. I didn't want to disappoint my parents or make my family look bad. And so I met my partner when I was 17, and we started partying together. We started using pills together. And side note, the people that I was using those pills with in the very beginning, out of all of us, I'm the only one that ended up taking this path. So that kind of puts in perspective, you know. So we,
and the perspective is that it can happen to anybody.
Yep.
It doesn't happen to everybody, but it can happen to anybody, no matter your circumstance.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
there somehow.
It is, yeah. So my partner and I, we were using Percocet and Vicodin, and then that graduated to OxyContin and fentanyl patches. And so from there, it wasn't a huge leap to heroin. And it quickly, it got out of hand. I started using intravenously, and that turned into a whole other huge addiction just on its own. So we used heroin for a few years, and I was absolutely getting, you know, all sorts of negative consequences. I got in an accident. I got in several accidents. But, you know, so I got in this accident and I just wasn't paying attention. I hit a telephone pole, and they brought me up to the emergency department. And I had a state trooper come in and talk to me because they found, like, I don't know, heroin baggies or something in my car. And he was like, you need to get this under control. I was only 17. So that was just one, you know, it just spiraled.
Did you make it through high school?
I did.
You did?
And yeah, I made it through high school. I graduated, and I got into Linden State College. And in the midst of this, like applying to colleges and such, I was like, you know, I'm using heroin. I didn't want to go to college. And I remember my dad sitting down with me and just crying and saying, please give this a chance. Like, you have so much potential. Just give this a chance. And I did. And I think that the use sort of was dialed back a bit during that time. I was still using here and there. And then I decided in my second year that I didn't want to do it anymore. I was homesick, even though I was only an hour away. And I came home and I started taking classes at CCV. And during this time, I got pregnant with my son. And I was able to stop using heroin. And after I had him, he's a perfect, beautiful baby boy.
He's definitely not a baby anymore, though.
He's not. He's not. He's 19, and he's perfect. When he was 2 months old, during this time, I was afraid of going back to the opiates. So I decided that I was going to get on Suboxone. And so this was like almost 20 years ago. And they had just started doing it up at CVSAS. I dropped, my partner had our son. I went up to be inducted to the Suboxone, and I left. and I wasn't supposed to be driving, but
But you didn't know
I didn't
that.
know that. And I picked up my 2-month-old little baby from my partner, and I drove to my parents' house, and on the way out there, I fell asleep and hit a tractor-trailer truck. And I just remember like waking up from that with like this intense pain, but at the same time hearing my baby cry. And that cry will be burned into my head for all of eternity because I knew he was okay. So I broke both of my legs, and like we didn't know if I was going to lose my legs, and if not, if I was ever going to be able to walk again. It was a lot. It was a long journey of learning how to walk again. I was in a wheelchair for several months and had all types of surgeries. And so what came from that is I was back on the opiates. And that was so hard. But during this time, I had a counselor who she's at this point a friend and always has been. Yvette Stevens. She lived in the same town as me when I grew up, and I've known her and her family since I was a child. She would come and pick me up from my parents' house in my wheelchair and bring me up to CVSAS for my counseling. She would come to my parents' house and she did counseling with me, which was immensely helpful. After this, it was so traumatic, the car accident.
Well, and traumatic that here you were in a space where you weren't using, and now you're once again totally reliant on something.
Yeah.
Because you truly hurt really bad, and there's
Yeah.
not a lot of and not a lot that was going to help you through that otherwise.
Absolutely. And you know, it was very triggering for me to have these pills, and I absolutely, anytime that I could misuse them, I did. I thank God for my parents during that time because they just like took right over. And yeah, it was a really dark period in my life.
Took over with your son, you mean?
Yeah, yeah, and caring for me.
Yeah.
They had an addition built on their house because I was in a wheelchair. I couldn't go upstairs to my bedroom. And, you know, I feel like I missed out on a lot as far as being a mom in those first months of my child's life. But, you know, I got through that. I got off of the opiates. I learned how to walk again. And I was able to not use for a few years. And then several years later, I started messing around again, but this time with stimulants. And at this point, I know that it was a lot of self-medicating. I mean, it all is, I think, in one way or another. I was dealing with a lot of depression, anxiety, and so I started using stimulants. I was hiding it for a little while and then not. And my partner, not long after that, we started using together again. And it's like a whole different beast. My life just went to shit after that. And it seemed like it happened so fast that time.
And when you say stimulants, what do you mean?
So I was doing like Adderall. I was buying Adderall from, Joe Schmo. And then it very quickly went to cocaine. And I was using that intravenously. And I feel like the addiction to the needle was just as bad as the addiction to the cocaine. And I had so many negative consequences. And I just couldn't.
Can you share some of them?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't keep a job. I was stealing from my family to support my habit. I pawned a bunch of my jewelry. I was racking up charges for retail theft, just over and over. It was terrible. I mean, I had to feed this addiction, and it was so dark, and I didn't see a way out. I didn't want to be this person.
So a lot of people end up turning to crime. People turn to crime. But I think that something that a lot of people also don't know is that turning to crime is a way that you can feed your addiction. In a lot of cases, stealing will just get you your next fix,
Yep.
right? But also that there are many times that you're willing to even put yourself in some really dangerous situations and
Yeah.
do dumb shit just because
Yep.
you want that fix so bad. It's not a matter of that you're doing this to hurt people in the community, hurt your family. You're willing to even hurt yourself, and you've
Yeah.
done that before. And
Yeah.
and I think that that's something that not a lot of people realize, that when you're trapped in the cycle, when you're trapped in what it's no matter what, like you'll do
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
it takes to chase that.
Absolutely. I was around people that I never would have dreamed that I would ever associate with. Dangerous, awful people. And yeah, I was putting myself out there, getting citations or arrested, multiple times a week sometimes.
And in some cases, doing it for your so-called friends, right? You put
Oh,
yourself in
absolutely.
situations
Yes.
where, Katie's the badass. She'll get it done for us.
Yes. Yeah. I took the fall a few times for my friends. And I couldn't make it stop. It was all about, so when you do cocaine, I think for most people, it gives you this invincible feeling. And, like you're on top of the world and nothing can touch you. You have all this confidence. And so I wanted to feel that way all the time, because when I wasn't using it, I felt exactly the opposite. Like I was just a piece of shit. And so it spiraled so quickly. We ended up unhoused, and so we were like couch hopping at all these trap houses, basically. And then just walking the streets or sleeping in abandoned buildings. And again, that is not a place I ever thought I'd be.
Now, did you always stay right local?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, that was another thing is, again, my dad has a business here in Barrie, and it was always in the back of my mind. Like, everybody knows my dad, and my family. And it was always in the back of my mind how everyone was seeing me. And I put myself out there on Main Street. And everyone knew what was going on. And so that just sort of added to the shame.
Well, and if you get to the point where you are able to say, fuck it, right, in your mind, if you get to this point in your mind where you just say, fuck it, then you can go. Then
Yep.
in your mind, you've painted this, there's no consequence here.
Right.
I'm just on a roll. It's all about me.
Yep.
And what I'm doing. You kind of close yourself off.
Oh,
from
totally. It's
everything
very,
else.
it's a very selfish way of living. And thinking about all of the guilt, because I felt a ton of guilt for hurting my family, my parents, my brother, my child. And I would go home to my parents' house, like on the weekends. We would go and spend time with our son, and a lot of times I would just sleep on the couch, or if
Well, it was a relief.
it was,
You were
it was,
home.
it
It was
was.
your safe
I was
space.
safe,
Yeah.
and I don't think that my parents or my family knew like just how bad things were when I was out here. I had a gun put to my head. Again, I was around people, bad people who are doing bad things, and it was easier for me to continue to do what I had to do to get high and not think about that.
So now here we are, where you have bad things, bad people. You have a ton of regrets at this point. So how do you get to the point where you say, okay, I need to pick myself up somehow and turn this around? How do you get to that point and now stay there, because every day all of this is still there. Your fight
It
is
is.
not done
Yeah,
by any means.
no,
It's not
no.
done. It's an everyday thing.
It is. And I had dug a hole so deep that, and I did so much counseling. I went to rehab. I did IOP. I did, drug counseling groups, and it was always sort of like, you're going to do this, or, we're not going to support you anymore. As
Right,
far
because
as
at that
my
point, it's a demand. It's not
Yep.
even a want. It's
Yep.
not something you want to do yet.
Yeah.
It's just a demand by either the courts or your family
Yes.
or, yeah.
But I still wasn't at that point where I was ready, because it has to come from me. And so eventually I had racked up so many petty charges. I had an amazing lawyer, and after one of many arraignments, he was like, I think the treatment court is a good option for you. And I was terrified. Like, once he told me what it was all about, I really didn't want to do it. But he really urged me and pushed me and was like, this is the best choice, because you can get help and you can get these charges wiped away, basically, if you successfully complete.
And it's not easy to successfully complete.
It is not. I was in treatment court for a long time, for like a few years. It took me a long time to get to the point where I was ready to just say enough is enough. I was lying, I was still using, and doing like anything I could to get around them knowing. And, once they find out that you're lying about the use, it becomes a problem. So I spent several different times they would give me a jail sanction. And I don't think that anyone is built for jail, if we're being honest, but I am not built for jail.
Yeah.
And so I went in just for like a few days at a time, several times, and it was awful. It was awful. And I decided that that was it, because if I didn't stop, I was
That's where
going
you
to
were
end
gonna
up in
live.
jail.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even bear that thought. So it took me some time, but I don't know if I would be here today in recovery if it wasn't for treatment court. The wraparound support that they give you, and just the motivation, and it will always stick with me. I had a counselor, and she told me, she's like, you could do this someday. Like, I can totally, you have what it takes to do this, if you get your shit together and get clean, of course. But that always stuck with me. And getting all of the different things back that I had lost.
Which is a long road. It's because you've lost trust. You've lost much more than you ever could even really think about.
Yeah.
It's not something, when you're going through all of that, it's not something that you really think about. It takes a long time to build yourself back up. And during that process, there can be a lot of kicks in the teeth, because you feel like, hey, I'm doing really good right now. Why aren't they recognizing that?
Yes.
When somebody maybe questions you a little bit, or is like, yeah,
Yep.
a little bit worrisome, that's just, it's another blow that you have
It
to
is.
overcome.
Absolutely, it is. And I think that just seeing my parents, my son, my brother, and my sister-in-law,
Wonderful person, by the way. I love her to death.
yeah, she is, even when I was at my worst in my addiction, she was just so kind to me, and never judged me. She just wanted to understand. And Natasha, I love you for that. My brother could not have picked a better.
No, definitely not. Not. She will check in on my son once in a while too,
Yeah.
or just weigh in or cheer him on. She's a pretty remarkable woman.
She is. Yeah. She is. I I couldn't have done all of the hard work that I did and kept going if it wasn't for my family.
Yeah.
And before I relapsed on stimulants, my brother and I were really close. And I lost him for a while, and that broke my heart. I missed him, and to have that relationship back, to get to be in my nieces and nephews' lives is huge. It fuels me. And then to have the relationship with my parents again, where they trust me and they don't have to worry about me. That right there will keep me from going back. And, you know, it's just, the support is so huge. It really is. It's everything.
Was it hard for you to find? I mean, everybody talks about, you know, going into rehab. We talk about the services available. And though I think that things have gotten a lot better around here, we certainly have a long ways to go.
Yep.
But did you experience that where really you weren't finding at the moment what you needed?
Absolutely. I didn't know where to go. And, you know, again, I had some great substance abuse counselors, and, you know, all the stuff that I learned with them and the support that I got from them stuck with me. But I think that, you know, back then, 10 years ago or so, there wasn't the resources that we have even now. And I had no idea where to look.
So it's like it's like chasing the drug, except now you're trying to chase peace and
Yep.
recovery.
Yep.
But it's exhausting, and there's no high in it. There's absolutely no
Yep.
high in it. It's just as exhausting.
Yep.
And it's just one more hustle, and
Yeah.
you're used to the hustle.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's got to be hard to stay in that lane and keep navigating no matter what.
Absolutely. It's a fight for my life. And, you know, thankfully I have the support of my family, and I was able to find resources. And my partner's in recovery too. And that is, I mean, he's my biggest cheerleader. And I'm so grateful for that because,
Right, because you're still together.
yeah, we've been together for almost 25 years, which is mind-blowing to me. But we've been to hell and back. And, you know, he's on his own journey of sustaining the life that we have now. And I think that one of the biggest motivators was, like I said, like slowly getting these things back, a place to live. Every day I thank God for a roof over my head. You know, sometimes it hits me like a flashback. Just when I'm driving down Main Street, remembering walking these streets with nowhere to go. And, you know, I was either dope sick or wanting to find cocaine, or, you know, just feeling like crap all the time. And now I have this beautiful life. Our son is amazing. He did the electrical program at Spalding, and he works for an electrical company now. He knows and has seen what we've been through. And we're very open with him. And he's got a really good head on his shoulders.
Tough conversations there. I mean, has he ever gone really angry and just let it all out at you? Have you ever had to deal with that conversation and that part of it?
He did when he was younger. Yeah, he did when he was younger. And I think that, like, we did an okay job of shielding him at the time. But also he,
He still
I
knew
wasn't
he lived
there.
with your
Yeah,
parents.
yeah,
and,
yeah. So we have an amazing relationship.
Well, it's probably
like-
because of your honesty that
Yeah.
you do.
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful for that. And that is my biggest goal in this life, is to make him proud.
I have no doubt that you've done that.
Yeah.
No doubt at all.
It's surreal to be at this point. But yeah, God, it's been hard.
So, how do you maintain now? Like that, you must. Is there a routine? Is there something that you do each day? Like, what they say, or even weekly, that counseling, yoga. Did you find something else that you really enjoyed doing? Like what? How did you gain that peace somehow?
I think that, just reconnecting with my family. And I love to be outside. It's just, it's the time with my family that does it for me. And then having this job at the Turning Point, I never could have imagined being in this position. I love what I do. And that accountability to the people that I support really keeps me going. And then also, the drug world right now is scary. It's terrifying.
Yeah, it's evolved.
It has. I've been through a lot. I've seen a lot, and there's not a lot that scares me, but it's really bad. And I've always wanted to be able to just support and give hope to other people that it doesn't always have to be like this, and that they can get better. I've had a couple of people, because I know a lot of people in this community. I've had 2 people that I supported, one up in the emergency department. When I walked in, this guy was like, "Oh my God, if you can get clean, I can get clean." And
you're okay with being that testament.
Absolutely.
Every day, all day, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, being a person who has been through it, those were the folks that I could relate most to when I was getting support. because it's not stuff that can be learned in a book.
No.
I mean, it is, but the lived experience really.
My association over the last several years with many years with addiction in general has certainly taught me a lot, and I'm not in the throes of it as far as using,
Right.
but I always trying to understand has been the tough part. And the biggest thing I think that I've learned is that there really aren't many people who it's the same for them. The recovery is the
Absolutely.
same. The treatment is the same.
Yep.
It's very few that it's definitely a meet you where you're at
Absolutely.
recovery.
Yes. Yeah. And you know, the people that I work with, first of all, are just,
Who are chiming in, by the way, and say you're amazing and they all love you so much.
well, the feeling is mutual. They're some of the best people I've ever met in my life. And their support and motivation and encouragement is everything to me. It really is. And I couldn't be more grateful to work there. When I was going through treatment court, was when I first got involved with the Turning Point. And Bob Purvis, my boss now, was just so amazing to me. He was so kind, and he met me where I was at. And that is what I want to do for the people that I support. Because like you said, nothing is the same. It's so individual. And there's a lot of barriers.
And I mean, it's part of life. It's part of where you're at now in your life and in your journey. You go, this is your work, this is what you do on a daily, but you have to know that you're going to see some really tough things.
Absolutely.
You're going to experience some extreme loss,
Yeah.
which you certainly have. You get attached to people. You want to see the same for them that your dad wanted to see for you.
Yeah.
All of that time, and so it's tough, but that's also such a huge realization of, holy shit, this is what I did when one of your one of the people that you're working with, if they've gone missing for a few days and you don't know where they are, and you're wondering, are they okay? Talk about full circle.
Yeah.
Full circle is what you do for sure on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very meaningful, and something that is always in the front of my mind that I got from my training is to not attach myself to an outcome. We are, again, meeting people where they're at and sort of helping them to navigate that journey. And we are all about harm reduction. It's not an abstinence-based program. And yeah, there have been several losses of folks that I don't think it will ever not hit me hard. I've lost 2 family members a couple of years apart from overdoses. And the first one, when she passed away, her name is Sarah. that was when I said, I'm never going to use again, ever. I can't. It's awful. And then we lost my cousin Dan, and I'm trying to make them proud as well. I'm living for them.
I have no doubt. No doubt. Dan was a super hard hit for me as well. I babysat Dan.
Yeah.
Like I remember when he was born, for God's sakes. And then to see him all of those years later, sitting in treatment court and knowing, because I hadn't seen him, of course, in many, many years.
Yeah.
And it was just so sad. And same thing, great family,
Yeah.
handsome as
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
get out, always was, but just lost somehow in the whole thing, and it's just incredibly tough. For
Yeah.
sure.
It just like creates this ripple. And he fought so hard. But the addiction won. And so just sort of like honoring their memory and being the best person that I can be and helping as many people as I can. Just to, even if it's just someone to listen to them and make them feel seen and heard, because when you're in the middle of an addiction, you don't feel seen or heard. I feel like nobody cares what you have to say because you're using drugs. And I don't want anyone to feel like that.
Yeah. Feeling like that can leave you right where you're at.
Absolutely.
Which is in a really bad spot.
Yeah.
So if you had what you do now, you have an opportunity to like tell people in the community, if there was one thing that you could tell them, what would you tell them? What do you say to people that you may have, you may be stealing from, what do you say?
I was sick. I was sick and lost. And all I could see was what was right in front of me. And that was, doing whatever I had to do to not feel awful emotionally, mentally, physically. And, I put myself out there so loudly when I was using, and I just want people to know that recovery is possible, it's attainable, and it doesn't always have to be this living hell.
But it took you a village.
It did.
You had your coach.
Yep.
You had people. It took a village. It took people, even like not directly, but even just people like me or anybody else in the community that is willing to see that you're a person, you're trying, that you don't love this any more than I do for you. And I think that has been even huge for me to understand, that as angry as I get with my own situations sometimes, that my son is just as angry.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, we don't deal with it the same way. I may go to bed and cry. I may smoke 2 packs of cigarettes in a day to supposedly, suppress the stress, or yeah, it. We all fight it in different ways,
For sure.
and we all deal with it in different ways.
Yeah.
But it takes a village, and you need all of us to proceed
Absolutely.
with your everyday.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, I think it's important for folks to realize that people shouldn't be defined by the worst time in their life, by the things that they do when they're using drugs, or who they become when they're using drugs, because it's not that doesn't it doesn't make people want to get better.
Before we go, you're over at the center, Turning Point Center. Let's let people know what is offered over there, what you guys bring to the table that we actually been missing around here for a little while.
Yeah, so we do one-on-one coaching. We have, I think there's 11 or 12 people that I work with. We do work up at the emergency department, and we're able to help people to get on maintenance meds, help them get into rehab, into like IOP at Treatment Associates.
And IOP is what?
Intensive outpatient. So it's like, it's 2 or 3 hours long, 3 days a week. And it's like these groups that you go to. Let's see, we run all sorts of groups at our center. There's one at 9 a.m. Monday through Friday, and one at 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. And we have a grief group, which is, I think, super important. It's for people who are struggling with substance use, who have lost someone, or family members who have lost someone to addiction.
And those groups are on Air Street.
They are, yep,
Yeah.
17 Air Street in Barrie.
Really cool spot.
Yeah,
over there.
that's our temporary space. We will be moving into our permanent location hopefully within a year.
Which is amazing, and that's right here on North Main Street.
It is, yeah. It's next to the Tilden House.
right?
Yeah. Yep.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff over there that's offered, and
Yeah.
so to anybody looking, reach out and
Absolutely.
and take the time to look into things. Take the time to talk to somebody, and maybe it's not your thing at the moment. Maybe you're going to go
For
once
sure.
and then not go again for weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
But it's there.
Yeah.
And you guys are all ready to be the village.
Absolutely. Yeah. For anyone, and especially for folks who don't have anyone in their lives, we're there. Just swing by. You can even just come and sit and hang out. We have a really comfortable couch, coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I invite anybody to come here anytime. If somebody wants to share their story,
Yeah.
it makes such a big difference. It makes for somebody to, even if you are still actively in addiction, to share your story, to get it off your chest, and to talk about it sometimes.
Yeah.
That can be your start.
Yes.
And it just helps someone know a little bit more about you and where you're at and what you're going through. And it just,
Yeah.
you know, it's just so important that we're honest, that we continue to be honest about addiction and what's happening in our community. And,
Yeah.
you know, not me, not you, no one is naive to what's happening. And no one's,
Yeah.
you're not saying that you don't, you know, you don't judge people for being angry. You understand that.
Absolutely.
And you're
Yeah.
asking that somebody not judge you either, and
Yep.
try to understand that
Yeah.
you want the best in all of this as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. The opposite of addiction is connection. And that's everything.
It is.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much
Thank
for
you.
coming and sharing your story with everyone. You have lots of comments. You'll have to go back
Yeah. I'll look.
later and check them out. And but thank you a million times for coming in, and thank you a million more for being a part of my everyday life, and for your encouragement and your support. And yeah, and I try not to get emotional, but I do. And it just, I'm just so freaking incredibly proud of you. It just
Thank you, Raylene. You mean a lot to me.
can't even begin to explain it, dear.
Thank you.
But I love you lots. Thanks
I love
for
you.
tuning in, and we'll catch you all again. And tune in Thursday night. Michael Louboutin and I will be right here, 7 o'clock for the weekly wrap-up. And check out the girls tomorrow night, actually, too. 4 quarters, 5:30 with Lori Shepard and the gang. Who knows who she's going to be bringing in here this week, but she'll be sharing all kinds of sports stuff, which I know nothing about.
Same.
I just don't. Lots of thank yous here. Glenn Brummer says to say hello to you. He was tuned in today, is my understanding, that you were in school with his daughter.
I was friends with his daughter,
Yeah,
Heather. Yeah.
Yeah. So he says hello to you too.
Hey, Glenn.
As well. So take care and have a great day.